Now we're going to start styling our document. So this is going to be relatively amazing as we go. You'll see a drastic change in our web page as we work. The very first thing I'm going to delete is this outline. We may need it later in order to figure out what's going on with our document, but for the moment, I'm going to delete it. And you saw that all the little red lines on all these boxes disappeared. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment in CSS commenting language. So slash asterisk box dash sizing space asterisk backslash. And you'll see that in Dreamweaver, it's grayed out. So comments are grayed out. It means that they shouldn't show up on your website. And we're going to target the HTML element HTML, and in other words, the entire document. And we're going to hit curly bracket, left curly bracket, which gives us a set of curly brackets. Then I'm going to type box sizing colon border box and semicolon to end that line. So these semicolons are optional, but almost all the time you end up having to add something else later. So I just find it easier. There's no rule that says we can't just leave that semicolon there at the end of that line. Next. So, and I talked about box sizing in the content. So, normally the old default for CSS was that if you needed to figure out the width of an element, you had to figure out the left margin, the border size, the size of the object, the left padding, and then the right padding, the border thickness, and the right margin. And you had to add that all together to get how the actual size that your object would exist um, on your page. And there's a much more current version of box sizing. It's not the default, but it is better in a lot of ways. And that's this box sizing border box, where to measure the size of an object, it only measures the left margin, the object, and the right margin, and it ignores the border and the padding. And so it makes it much easier when we get to sizing things for, say, mobile. It just cuts down on a lot of thinking. There's one other piece of this. It's a little bit more. Colon before. Okay. It's sort of a specialized thing. I don't know that we will get into it. Okay. So there is elements that can occur before an object in a web page, and there's elements that can occur after. And so, for instance, when we do a list, you get a bullet, and that bullet would be a before object. And so we're telling it that for those elements, box sizing is inherit. Okay. And that means that if the object outside of this object uses box sizing, then the before and the after will also use the box sizing. Okay. Next, we're going to add some structure to this. So I'm going to hit slash asterisk structure. And I'm going to have some structural objects in here. And I'm going to start off with body. In other words, most of the document is going to have a background color. And I could pick most any color, but I'm going to hit the number sign and I'm going to use 555, and you'll see that it's a fairly dark gray. And I could type 5 more 5s and it would be that same color gray, but we can, since this is the R, the first two numbers are for red, the second two numbers are for green, and the third two numbers are for blue in the RGB color setup. Since the numbers are all similar, we can tell this to be 555 like that, semicolon. And then it looks like that. And you can see that our background color has become dark gray. Next, I'm going to take our wrap. So number sign wrap, ID equals wrap. Up in the CSS, that ID is a number sign, wrap, semicolon. I'm going to tell it, so this gets a little complicated. First of all, I'm going to tell the background color is going to be DDD, which is a much lighter gray, dark enough that we can see any white objects that are on it, but light enough so that it's different from the background, semicolon. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go to preview, and it'll ask me what I want to preview it in. And I'll preview it in Chrome. And this is what our site looks like at the moment. Okay. All right. And so the wrap, its natural status is to be 100% of the width of the page, which is what we have here. So it completely covers up the body. Okay, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to add some more things. So say I want this to be width 800 pixels. And I go save, and I go to Chrome, and you'll see that this object is now only 800 pixels wide. Okay. We might want this to be centered on the page. So we're going to use a special instance. There is a trick we can play. So there's this item or this idea of margin, which is space outside of our object that it uses to push away other items. I can tell margin to be, there can be a zero margin at the top. And if I make auto margin, so I can actually do this the long way. So top is 0, right is auto, bottom is 0, left is auto. That can be abbreviated as just 0 auto, since the top and bottom and the left and right are the same. But I'm going to go save that, go to tab, hit refresh. Well, you can see it's already centered. Okay. So giving the margin a 0 left and a 0 right, it automatically centers this page. And if I change the browser, you'll see that it stays centered. So margin 0 auto is just kind of a very convenient way to center objects when you can do it. The one problem with 0 auto is, or at least the way this is set up right now, is that I've run out of space when I'm making this browser narrower, and it starts to cut off my design. So I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver. And instead of just setting this to width 800 pixels, I'm going to set this to width 100%. If I set it to width 100%, and I go to, did I close it? I must have closed it. Okay. Come on. Well, I'll go to here and I'll go to File, and I'll reopen, close tab. There it is. So now I've set it to width 100%, and you'll see that your copy collapses and stays within the width of the browser. And so now I'm going to go to Dreamweaver, and we have another sizing we can do. We can tell it to be max width colon 800 pixels. Command save. And if we do that and hit refresh and we change the size of this, Oh, hang on a second. Oh, come on. I guess I have to go back here and double check this. Background color is DDD, width is 100%, max width, colon, 800 pixels. Oh, come on. Cooperate, little. There we go. I'm not sure why that wasn't cooperating, but it did cooperate, and now it does that. And then when it gets smaller than 800 pixels, you can see that it collapses to fit. Okay. Kind of complicated, right? Okay, so that sets up our wrap. Go back to Dreamweaver somewhere. Okay. Now we're going to tell the header and the footer. Header. Well, we'll do the header. And we're going to tell it to be background color. And I'm going to do it 444, which is even darker. And if you see, the header fits within everything that was within the header now has a darker background. And what I can do, so if you notice, this type is black and this type is, and sorry, the background is dark. If we type in color, colon, white, it makes all that type white with the exception of the links, which will need to be colored more accurately later. Okay. And I save and I go to Chrome. I think that's part of the problem is that it's possible for more than one. I think it actually creates a different version of Chrome. So I'm going to hit this and I'm going to hit that and I'm going to, you'll now see that we have a header, darker color, and white type within the header. Okay. Next, I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver and I'm going to type footer, background color, four, color white, and save. And refresh. Okay. And I scroll to the bottom and it didn't work. Interesting. If I refresh, does it go? Does not go. Okay. That might be the big problem. If I go here, you'll see that that in fact is darker with white type. Okay. So I'm going to don't know why that's not working. So one against Dreamweaver. Okay. Now what we have is header. We have the header at the top. We have a section or a main that contains this middle section, and then we have a footer. So I'm going to add a little padding. So right now, if you look at this, the text is right up against the edge of the box. Not so pretty. So I'm going to tell the header, comma, footer, or comma, main, comma, footer. I have a padding of 20 pixels at the top and 60 pixels at the bottom, semicolon, save. Refresh live view. And I'm probably going to find out that, in fact, I've got the main. Right. So, worked on the header, didn't work on there. So I'm going to change this. And instead of main, I'm going to type section. And that brought that in. And then the footer also came in. So we now have a fairly decent looking page. And all we did was add a little bit of, let's see if it'll let me do this. Okay. So we took the wrapper and we told it to be narrower than the full width of the page because it gets to be kind of hard to read if this extended all the way across the page. So I created a maximum size that it would go to. But if I want to have a narrower window, I can narrow the window and that will not be a problem. Okay. I told the top to be a dark gray. I told this to be medium gray. And then the bottom, the footer, is a dark gray also. And the text is white inside, and the exception is on the links. Okay. All right, next. Go back to Dreamweaver. Now we've got this problem, or I see it as a problem, where these images that are in the figures are indented. And I can eliminate that problem by going here, margin, figure. So this is an instance where the built-in style sheet that's built into your browser automatically kicks that image in. So, and it kicks that image in using margin around on the left and the right-hand side of that figure. So if I tell this margin :0, you'll see that it pops back out. Okay, and that should do that. All right. Now, we can also do some work on our typography. So I'm going to type in a comment. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the body. So this is going to be universal for everything. Font family, colon. I could pick one of these, but I'm just going to tell it to be Arial, Helvetica, sans serif, semicolon. And you'll notice that all our type just went sans serif. It's no longer little feet on the end of the type. Okay. Next. I might want this type to be a little bigger here, so I can go to my H1, font size, 36 point, or pixels rather. And you'll see that it just got a bit larger. I can go to fig caption, and tell it to be font style, italic, and font size The default is 16 point, maybe just -2. That didn't work. Okay. 14 pixel. Now we have these links up here that are within a UL. So let's go. And I'm going to call this nav type. And so I've got UL adding left is 0. And you'll see that that just jumped over to the left. And then I have these bullets that I want to delete. So I'm going to go to nav li. So this says that we have an li that's within a nav element. And the only one we have that's with a nav element is this particular one. And so I can tell it to delete the bullets by going display our list style is none. And it would help if those were curly brackets. So let's try that again. Delete curly brackets, list style, none. And you see those bullets went away.